Anvil, Hammer, Hatchet Podcast.
Welcome to Anvil, Hammer, Hatchet, where we answer all of life's questions in about an hour and a half. I'm Chris.
I'm Army.
And we have the triumphant return today of Big Daddy Ross.
It's good to be back,
the
boys,
boss's
again.
boss.
We're here. Let's rock it. Thank you. Thank you. Please. please.
And celebrating Ross's triumphant return, we have good news. Most of you were aware of some concerns we were having last week, but amazingly, no surgeries for Big Daddy Ross. We have a whole and complete co-host.
I'm here, guys.
No amputations were necessary.
Just a slight lobotomy, but
we were this close to being 2.5 men.
He almost,
but
he almost had a cock lobotomy.
But yeah, no, good news. Everybody's in good health. No,
I'm a little hungover.
Well, that it does happen. It does happen.
Anyway,
we did have some.
We don't have any corrections this week, do we?
Oh, do we?
Oh.
Yeah, we've got a few. So we should probably just
hit it
for housekeeping purposes. Just go ahead and
because last week it was just you and I. So that brought down the margin of error slightly, but I guess not. Maybe we're still.
Oh, I see how it is.
There's a fairly good sized list.
Okay.
For
Don't be CBA.
This week's edition. Let's see where to start. Number 1. Jimmy Page is not dead.
Yeah, that was it was supposed to be
Really?
Jimi Hendrix.
Right. Yeah, he is not a member
Jimmy
of the
Page.
27 Club. He is alive and well and probably still trying to arrange a Led Zeppelin reunion tour. And for whatever reason, Robert Plant will not get on board. Last week, I referred to an icon in hip hop, Rev Run from Run DMC, as DJ Run.
Oh, okay.
No.
Jam Master Jay was the DJ for Run DMC. Shows you what alcohol can do to your brain.
Oh, absolutely.
That was definitely, it was not something I thought was correct when I said it. It just fell out of my face. So
was that during? So we did like almost 3 hours of podcasting last week. You and I, we did an extra half.
So
if you total
so 2
it up,
hours,
it's
about 2.
Yeah.
But,
so by that time we were half in the bag.
Right. And I wish I could attribute it to that, but I made that screw up in the show, not the bonus episode.
Wasn't a major one, though. Wasn't a major one.
Just out of respect, though, and respect for those guys and the place they have in music history, I felt it necessary to correct that for sure.
Roger that.
In our discussion about legendary rock drummer of The Who, Keith Moon, we said there was no way he made it into his 30s. Keith Moon was 32 when he died. So he was a soldier as far as living that hard and that fast, to make it longer than apparently any of us thought he possibly could have.
On that note, how old was Bonham when he died? Because he died in 1980. He must have been into his 40s, right? He must have been.
I have no idea.
Late 30s, early 40s?
I don't know.
I have no idea, to be honest.
Okay. Well, we won't have to put that on the list because
we
don't know.
Next week.
As long as we don't speculate, we can't make
That's right.
mistakes. But if you do know the answer to that and want to email us at AnvilHammerHatchet@gmail.com, let us know how old was John Bonham when he died. Morbid subject.
I think I'm going to Google that and then email us.
I also referred to, as far as names, screwing up famous people's names. I think I referred to another icon, Marsha from the Brady Bunch.
Marsha.
John Bonham was 32 years old when he passed away.
Another 32.
Wow.
So maybe for drummers have a stronger constitution and
Ross,
can make it an extra 5 years.
I am 27. So
dude,
I got
you got 5 years.
Let the countdown
until
clocks
I spontaneously
begin.
explode on stage. So
What do they call the sort of countdown list? It's really morbid thing that people do where
the death countdown.
Yeah, what is it? It's got a name.
The death countdown, I believe, or something like that. Where you take your age and
the Deadpool. It is Celebrity Deadpool. They actually take bets on it in Vegas, where people speculate who's going to die this year or what age people are going to die. And I think they can run for years. Like I could speculate that Ross is going to die at 32 because he's a drummer. And then, so I've got that outstanding bet.
30 to 1 odds.
For the next 5 years, I'm waiting to see if I won. So again, super morbid, super creepy, and I think people make a lot of money off that. I referred to Marsha Brady, the actress that played her, as I think I said her name was Maureen McCullough. Her name is Maureen McCormick, and I know that. Again, as well as I know Rev Run, I know Maureen McCormick was Marsha Brady, and alcohol's a motherfucker apparently because and that was in the second segment. And as you said, we were not 100% functional during that bonus
but that
podcast.
was the funnest part of that whole day was getting into that second half.
We were also, when we were talking about the Wrecking Crew, you mentioned Neil Diamond as a writer for the Monkees. So this wasn't actually a mistake. This is just more detail about what you said.
One song,
right? He did "I'm a Believer." He wrote "I'm a Believer" for the Monkees. But really? So that that is kind of cool.
Mickey Dolenz sang that song, didn't he? Or it was because it wasn't Davy Jones that sang that. I don't think
Davy Jones had such a higher register that
he was like Daydream Believer and
which is dude. We didn't mention that song last week, but I really like that song.
That's a great song.
As a matter of fact, for any punk rock bands out there who are looking for a cool little cover to do, I think Daydream Believer would make an awesome punk track. Imagine if the Descendants did a version of Daydream Believer. I feel like awesome. It would be a really cool track. So that's a little suggestion to any punk bands that are out there listening. Record that, email it to us. We will play it on the show. We'll plug your band. Try to get you guys out there. So everybody, I want to get a flood of cover versions of Daydream Believer.
We could run a contest.
Winner gets a shirt.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
We have a contest. If we had more than 3 listeners, we could actually have a contest.
Yeah, we could.
I'm telling you, we've listed literally more than 3.
Okay, maybe listeners. 5.
And speaking of our listener base, we are available on a new platform.
Yes.
We're now available on Google Play.
Yeah.
It's a little strange to find it. You can get music at the Play Store. For anybody out there who uses Android, you can get music on the Play Store, buy albums or whatever, and it's under apps, the same area where you find apps and games. If you search for podcasts on the Play Store, they don't come up. You actually open Google Music, the integrated player, and do your searches there.
I see.
And any podcast will come up, and then you can just click and subscribe and they show up in your feed. So
right on.
If you're an Android user, open your Google Music, do a search for
Anvil in there. Just subscribe.
It's Anvil Hammer Hatchet, one word. When it comes up, just click subscribe. It would definitely help us out a lot.
Favor.
That means I'm going to have to take my pants off during the podcast.
No pants.
Are you wearing pants now? Why is today different than the previous?
Well, I normally wear underwear at least, but I'm just going to go.
I thought you were
pants.
I thought you were full commando every episode.
No.
Wow,
you just can't tell from that side.
I know I can't. Well, the room just got a lot less exciting. I know that. I think that sums up our corrections from the previous weeks. If you find any other ones, let us know. In that bonus episode we did, I'm sure it's littered with them. So if you notice anything where probably I screwed the pooch on it, let us know, and we will take care of it via.
Don't be CBA.
Where I, on a weekly basis, admit how dumb I am.
Absolutely.
We had some bad news last night. We lost a pretty iconic major figure.
The passing of Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry.
Somebody asked me yesterday what he died of, and I said of being 90.
Yeah.
That's what killed him, being 90. But good run.
Oh yeah.
90 years old.
Extremely influential.
Living as hard as that guy did, playing as hard as that guy did, dealing with as much bullshit as that guy did early in his career.
A lot of people don't know about Chuck Berry. Well, maybe some people do. Maybe it's common knowledge. But he drove to every gig in his Cadillac with his guitar. And would just show up and there would be a backing band there and they had to know the songs, and he would just get up on stage and go. And a lot of times, he wouldn't tell anybody what key it is in or anything. They would just have to know it. And a lot of those songs from the 50s sound very similar when they start. You know what I mean? Like Johnny Be Good. There's a couple of songs that have a similar type intro. And so the band has got to be like, okay, what song is this? We got to be on point.
They all basically sound like Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future. The beginning of that, the intro to that.
Yeah.
But
I do think it's kind of interesting that this is actually not the first time that we've talked about Chuck Berry on this show. back in episode 2, we had a conversation about Chuck Berry.
We did.
And this goes back to something that Big Daddy Ross and I discovered about our conversations a long time ago. About a year and a half ago, we started noticing that every time we mentioned somebody, they ended up dead within a month.
Within a month.
We were on this sort of almost.
So you guys killed Lemmy?
Almost on an almost daily mention of Motorhead and Lemmy, and I think it was a week later we got the news on him. Mm-hmm. I went through this bout where I was throwing as much David Bowie at Ross as I could do. 2 months later, David Bowie passed away. It was really we were talking about.
We're talking about
something we weren't even big fans of. We had a conversation about the Eagles, and 2 weeks later, Glenn Frey died. Yeah. We are literally You're
killing rock and roll single-handedly.
We're the henchmen of the Grim Reaper when it comes to musicians, apparently.
So.
There's a weird dark loop surrounding you guys whenever you bring something up.
There must be a major absence of music in hell. Because they are bringing all the best musicians down and rounding them up to apparently form the greatest band ever.
That's right.
But yeah, so, a few weeks ago, we had a little aside about Chuck Berry, and lo and behold, the man, the myth, the legend passed sadly yesterday. As far as a life goes, and an amazing life that left a lasting impression on music, on rock and roll, you could argue that we might not even have rock and roll as we know it without Chuck Berry and his influence on the Beatles and on the Rolling Stones and some real game changers when the rock and roll was really starting to ascend.
Because Chuck Berry was doing, like, Elvis was right around the same time. He had, like, the Elvis thing going on. But Chuck Berry was bringing it like, hard electric and, like, really rocking it. I mean, and just, he would do that duck walk thing, and all the little single note picking.
Which it mostly was. From a technical standpoint, if you listen to modern guitar or even guitar from the 70s and 80s, and then go back to and listen to some of those old the original rock and roll tracks, the playing is actually very simplistic.
Well, the thing that got me was the master wordsmith that he was. The way he wrote his songs and the way they just flew through the song.
It was a teenage wedding and the old folks wished him well.
Exactly. Drop the nickel right into the slot. All that stuff. It just flowed so good, and along with his phenomenal picking style.
This goes back to something that we've talked a lot about recently. Did he write his own songs, or did he have songwriters that worked for him?
No, he wrote. I don't know. I believe he wrote his own songs.
It was. During that period, it was really commonplace.
Who would be writing those songs other than him? You know what I mean?
Because rock and roll was so new. That's true. The production houses that were hired, had the staff that was writing music. I think were writing more, I guess, lounge. What would
Perry Como style
Frank
stuff.
Sinatra? Frank Sinatra didn't write his own. So Dean Martin, those things. What is that style? Is it lounge music? I've always just referred to them as crooners.
You're right.
Most of the musicians of that day, I believe, were performers. They weren't writers. Like you said, Army, at that time, rock and roll was so new that I don't think those writing houses were pumping out a whole lot of rock and roll. So most of those songs probably were original.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was all like the teenage rock and roll love type of
Sweet
thing.
16.
That was the rebellion. But if you think of it, there is the list of creepy songs that came out.
Sweet little 16. Oh, she just got to have. Yeah, I've always been into Chuck Berry.
Some of the first licks I learned guitar were Chuck Berry licks.
Yeah,
they spoke to me. I loved them.
And I think he played a bunch of different style guitars, but I think his primary guitar, and I may be wrong, and this is probably going to go on the list, but didn't he play like a Gibson, the 335?
335, 34.
Or something like that. The hollow body style.
Red hollow body. With the F-holes on it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that guitar.
And he would just like get up there and duck walk and oh my God.
And he was doing that duck walk for a while. Even when he was up there in that age, he still would pull it off like a boss.
I used to be in this rockabilly band, like a very traditional rockabilly band. We did mostly like Sun Sessions, Elvis Sun Sessions style rockabilly, like upright bass, no drums, just acoustic guitar and electric guitar, like exactly like Bill Black, who was a guitar player for Elvis.
I don't know his name. I know who you mean though.
Yeah.
Did he? I hesitate to speculate. Did he pass away recently? Did somebody from Elvis's original band pass away recently?
I think it was him. And Scotty Moore, amazing player. So Scotty Moore, Bill Black, and Elvis Presley. That was kind of the arrangement that we had. But we did do Chuck Berry songs, and we did Maybelline. There's a million of them.
There's every single one is a hit, pretty much.
And he's been active, or he was actively up until yesterday, actively playing on a regular basis the entire time. Not a whole lot of people can say that.
I've never seen him. That one of the guys in the band that I was in, that band that I was just talking about, the Blue Crowns, got to see him, and of course, it was like 94 or something.
Yeah.
Right.
I would have loved to have seen him, just to say that.
Who were you talking about the other day that you said you had a chance to see him? And was it BB King?
Yes, BB King. I saw him at the Civic Auditorium downtown Santa Cruz.
No way.
And you said it was almost sad and disappointing because he was so old and.
I expected to see young BB King. That's not
BB and Lucille just going for it.
But he had some medication going on at one point in the stage. He forgot what song he was. Yeah, he totally had a blank in the middle of a song where he had no idea where he was.
Didn't you say the second guitarist on stage was actually playing the majority of his parts?
Yes, it was the second guy who was playing all of his original stuff, and at one point the guy was letting a little too loose, and BB King turned his shoulder and said, "Hey, calm down a little bit. That's a little too much, man.
Take it down a notch, buddy.
Down a little bit, yeah." But I mean, the guy is still one thing you see when you go to see BB King is yes, a phenomenal blues player, gospel singer, but the stories that man has as he's in between his sets are freaking amazing.
Oh, I
the
bet.
Story how Lucille saved his life multiple times. The story of how his car flipped. He got in a car crash. His car flipped over 8 times. And his guitar, Lucille, held up the from the roof to the floor of the car.
No way.
Held up the car to save his life.
That's what kept it from crunching in. Wow. Yeah. That's an amazingly well constructed instrument.
Yes,
I will say
right.
That
that's
for
what
sure.
I'm saying. Yeah.
And there is, I believe, isn't there a signature BB King Lucille model?
I have to believe so. There's only one Lucille.
You know what? I'm not even speculating. That I actually know there is a Lucille model. I don't know off the top of my head the model make. But
yeah,
I do know that I think it's Gibson.
It's definitely Gibson.
Has a Lucille signature model.
Yeah.
So and we lost BB King a while back. That one's not a new one.
He had the diabetes.
Chuck
but
Berry
I'm still glad I saw him. I mean, I'm really glad.
Who was it that you were saying you wanted to see? Oh, but you were almost. It was somebody else who we lost. Leon Russell.
Leon Russell played the Catalyst, and unfortunately, I missed my opportunity to see that show. He's not influential. I mean. Getting Lost in the Woods. I mean,
he was
Tightrope.
He was a member of the Wrecking Crew, which is a documentary we talked at length about last week. He was one of those guys, one of those players that is on a ton of records that we've all heard.
And for me, when he got together with J.J. Cale in 1975 at Paradise Studios in Los Angeles, which was Leon Russell's studio, that recording right there stuck with me forever. I mean, I got that DVD and I probably watched it every day for a month.
Anything with J.J. Cale
it's just
to
awesome.
me is amazing.
Yeah,
you're the one who actually turned me on to J.J. Cale. I was obviously familiar with the name and knew.
Oh yeah,
the
I
artist,
think I gave you Okie or one of those ones to listen to. I love just so sweet.
The road and with him and Eric Clapton, The Road to Escondido, another great album. That I freaking love.
Right. And Clapton obviously took quite a few of his songs and made them hits.
So did Leonard Skinner. I mean, Call Me the Breeze.
Was that a J.J.
Cale song?
I had no idea of that either. That's interesting.
He did,
interesting
and we're gonna let it hang out all night, hang down all night, or
we're gonna let it all hang out.
Yeah, that song.
After midnight.
Yeah, after midnight.
It's called After Midnight.
Let it all hang out.
Yeah, it's crazy how
and then Eric Clapton made that one pretty familiar.
The hit, right? But I'm sure J.J. Cale made a little scratch on him too.
Maybe
he would have gotten a writer's credit.
It's funny.
Now.
He's got a song. I can't remember the name of the song, but he's like, "I make rock and roll records. I sell them for a dime." So he can like feed his children. He's talking about.
Yeah, but you know what? Those dimes stack up pretty quick.
Indeed.
And when on classic rock radio, when that's in their rotation, getting played, the 10 songs they play every hour, that's one of them. Those dimes stack up pretty fast.
And if you're the writer on that and you've got that right,
David Bowie did that for Iggy Pop. China Girl was an Iggy Pop song, and David Bowie. And
didn't he produce The Idiot?
Yeah, they had a long relationship. Iggy was down. It was one of his downslopes where he was kind of hit the skids a little bit.
Post Stooges.
Right. David Bowie took China Girl, which was an Iggy Pop song, and put it on Let's Dance. It was one of the first few singles from that album that got released and was in heavy rotation on the radio and on MTV. And Iggy Pop got a little piece of that. I'm sure David Bowie recorded and produced and released that song because he really thought it was a great song, which it is.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there was some part of him that also chose to do it to give Iggy Pop a little boost up, a little leg up. I don't think J.J. Cale ever needed that from Eric Clapton. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But there's a
well, I think the thing is they were all simpatico, we're brothers in music, and let's share music, let's do this. Exactly. And if it happens to work out, that's great.
Right. And I'm sure if you're a somewhat lesser known artist who still relies on music and playing and performing and writing to make a living, having somebody who's very established, very well known, and arguably a rock legend even then record your song and release it as a single would be amazing for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Not only is it a great bump for your bank account, but it also speaks volumes to your talent and your ability. So you can kind of even just wear that as a badge of honor.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if it's just a one-time thing, it's still something.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck Berry. How many people have covered Chuck Berry songs?
Everybody.
Who hasn't?
Yeah, it's bananas. The amount of influence that Chuck Berry had, you can't state it higher. You can't understate it, I should say.
He's an icon. I think that's really what you said, is just basically he's an icon.
Is he in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? He has to be.
Yes,
he has to be. I mean, I know they have a pretty bad history of not inducting people who
actually need it,
who deserved it, needed it, had met the criteria of being, 20 years and 2 albums. They have a set of standard criteria, and there's a lot of people who had met that criteria that were pushed out and pushed. Kiss being the most notable, that they had been snubbed year after year after year.
I'm okay with them being snubbed.
Well, they were finally inducted. The reason I think it's kind of an issue that it took so long for them to be inducted is not based on how great they are musically. It's more based on the influence that they had. And any of the guys who you hear that listen, the bands that came up in the late 70s, well, that's probably a little early. Let's go more into the 80s that were into metal or like really hard rock. They all cite Kiss as an early influence because Kiss is music that is digestible for when you're 8 and 9 years old. That music is appealing.
It's because it's kitsch.
It has a comic book flair to it. It has a cartoonish flair to it because of all the fanfare, which is weird because what they were doing, if you had just dialed it back a few years from when those kids started getting really into, I believe Kiss Alive or Kiss Alive 2 was the album that really kids were just like, oh my God. Before that, what they were doing was glam. They were doing the New York Dolls. Yeah. They were doing David Bowie. The glam they were doing T-Rex. The makeup and the really affected presentation, but because I guess they were a little bit too masculine to really pull off the New York Dolls David Johansen thing, they went a little sort of darker and Japanese. It was based on kabuki theater, the makeup and everything.
Cartoony was a great way to just
and so kids gravitated to it, and that was a lot of kids, that was their first exposure to like heavy rock music. And so that once they got older, started playing and learned to play a little better, their taste moved on. But so many huge people cite Kiss as being a major influence.
Understand that, just not my personal preference. I wasn't one of those kids that grew up with
you'll
Kiss.
Find it you'll be hard pressed to find people who will argue that they really are big Kiss fans based on their fantastic, amazing songwriting skills.
Absolutely.
That's their
there's the sound.
All right, so it is break time. We're gonna tap out for a couple seconds, go see if we can reset and reconnect. Hang tight, guys. We'll be right back. And we're back from break. That was actually a pretty fun break. I got to be honest. That was I would say one of the better ones. And so I'm back. Got Army Armstrong still in the co-pilot seat with me, and of course, Big Daddy Ross, the boss's boss.
Thank you. Please. And
joining us today, we have a guest, Don and Roland from the Inciters, an internationally renowned band, very prolific, I would say. They're a northern soul band, and we're definitely lucky to have Don in studio with us. Welcome, Don.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's our pleasure. And Army, you and Don actually have a bit of a connection, right? You guys have a background.
We do. We've known each other for, how long has it been?
10 years?
10 years. It's got to be 10 years.
Yeah.
And
So since you were wee whippersnappers, since you guys are so young and vital now.
Since I was 34, I guess. So I'm 44 now.
Well, math works.
You're 17.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we did. I think we first started out, we met because our bands played together. I was in a band called System of a Down. I'm just kidding.
I was about to say, wow, you don't even look remotely Armenian.
Memory's fuzzy.
You don't look remotely Armenian.
Thank you. It was a band called Symptoms of a Wet Guitar. Great name, amazing results. But so we would play together. And Dawn was in this band called Fainting Goats.
Just to put you guys in a position where one has to alpha male the other. Who opened?
Oh, Symptoms opened.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
I think that's true, actually.
It is true.
I think we did open.
Yeah. I know you can put your staff to it and check the facts on that.
Yeah, well, we've got a poster up here on the wall that's...
Fainting,
right there. I don't know. Is Fainting Goats on that
Let's
one?
ask who...
They are.
Fainting Goats.
Yeah.
Symptoms of a Wet Guitar, with special guests, Caught in Motion, and Fainting Goats.
Yeah, well, see, I orchestrated that poster.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
And
As
so,
the opener, you made sure to
Little revisionist history.
Yeah, exactly.
Symptoms logo is much bigger than the other band's logo. I'm sorry, Don.
I will be Instagramming that flyer out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we can
There's a lot of
see.
Propaganda right here.
That's about the cleanest looking one I've seen.
Thanks. Yeah.
The others were pretty X-rated that you designed.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me in the least.
No.
So definitely it proves that Army's ego outshines his talent every time.
Well,
no, I'm absolutely kidding, dude. I love your music. You know I love your music.
Well, thank you. But
if I didn't
there
love your
was
music,
a lot of ego in Symptoms
if
of a
I
Wet
didn't
Guitar.
love your music, I
It's kind of
wouldn't
what
be
it was
using
about.
it as our theme music
Right.
every week.
Oh, absolutely.
That band, his band would bring a light show with them.
Yeah.
I mean, lights to a restaurant bar.
Right.
And was this the
We would play
was this
a
the same
shithole-
band that you had the 10 guitar rack in the background? Wow,
Yeah.
so you guys were all about the show.
On
Yeah.
a light night.
So we would play with Dawn and the Fainting Goats and the Daves, and we would play like
This is local Santa Cruz?
yeah. We played
mostly.
mostly Santa Cruz, right? But we would go play shit boxes, and our guitar player would bring. Like, we would just bring massive amounts of gear and create, like, sound beds.
If you want to refer back to earlier episodes, this is the guitarist for the Avi Zev band.
Oh, I was
currently,
going to ask
correct,
that, yes.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you said he still has that 10 guitar rack?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a collector, and, he's a proficient musician and tech guy, and he's but
unless you're doing and Don would know this too, as a touring musician, you want to keep your mobility in your equipment as light as possible. So unless you're using 10 guitars on 10 different songs, you don't need to bring 10. As a matter of fact, you don't want to unless you want to show off and do the bang pow explosion.
Right. But I will admit that when I would play with them, and for a while I played in the band with them, it became a little bit of an arms race.
Right. Yeah. Scramble to show.
That's cool. I can do that too. Oh, 10? That's bullshit. I got 11.
But that's cool. That's actually, you guys were pushing each other forward in a way when it becomes competitive like that. I think the Stooges and the MC5 had a similar relationship where they were kind of trying to one up each other for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And it made all of them better musicians and better bands.
I don't know that we got better, but we definitely drained our bank accounts on guitars.
we had fun.
You spent the money to have
that's
fun.
A great.
You can't take it with you.
That's a great way to bring this in. Is speaking of guitars, I know you and Nat Canyon both are collectors, but I think you definitely take the cake when it comes to collecting guitars. I've been in your garage. I've been in your studio.
How many?
Okay, if my wife is listening, she has to turn it off. So I don't know exactly, but it's...
See, okay, stop right there.
That says it all, doesn't
know
it?
Right there.
Exactly.
Right there.
I have 7.
7.
Top of my head, know it immediately. I have 7.
That's a good start. But I like even...
Ow! Shots fired.
Right in the
Shots fired.
It's in the cute category. Right.
Well, that's definitely... that's a word that's used to describe me often.
I'm a fan of even numbers, so I recommend you take it to 8.
Oh, there you go.
I like it.
Yeah.
I will take your suggestion.
So, what do you think, if you're going to ballpark it, how many guitars you got? Because I've seen all the cases in your studio.
50.
50.
Nice round number.
Yeah,
nice round number.
Right.
All right, now let me ask you this. When you're on the road, how many guitars do you take with you?
2.
I like it.
Now,
Exactly.
Let me ask you this. Do you take your mint green Telly and the color matched Fender amp that goes along with that?
I do. Although that's not my main guitar right now.
Is that right?
But yeah, I mean, there was a time when we would travel that I would say I want to leave the good stuff at home. But I mean, I'm never going to play huge stages and
Ross actually he referred to that in a previous episode where he was saying, would you really want to bring your expensive Ampeg to a show where it might get bashed about? You kind of want a workhorse to go with you. You don't necessarily need to bring the creme de la creme of your gear on the road. You want to bring the one that can serve the most purposes.
You don't want something that's gonna shit out you on the middle of the stage, even though it's a great name, it's whatever.
But you
love it.
But if you're playing a set of 15 songs, you want to pick the guitar, amp, and cabinet setup that's got the sweet spot where it can sound closest to the original track on most or all of those.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit of a gearhead. And so I want to be able to...
With 50 guitars, clearly you are.
Well,
maybe slightly.
But I mean, I want to be able to get the sound that I want, so the sound that's in my head, and I don't want to be let down by the equipment. So imagine you go out and you play and you're disappointed in your performance, and that takes a lot of the fun out of it because it gets in your head. And if at the end of the night you're thinking, my gosh, if I'd only had the guitar I really loved with me, and that's not necessarily my most expensive or most collectible. But
Probably rarely is it that.
Maybe. I mean, you talk about favorite guitars. Is that a matter of, is it your most sentimental favorite? Is it the most expensive? Is it the one your guitar hero played when you were a kid? I mean, all of those could fit in the category. It's hard to narrow that down. But for me, it's, what do I want the song to sound like? What do I want my contribution to sound like? And so the last thing I want to do is say, well, I kept my guitar safe at home. At least I didn't ding it.
Right. Yeah,
exactly. And use something else. But when we travel overseas, I don't bring my amp with me just as a cost factor.
Right.
So there's a company there that arranges a backline.
Right.
Oh, nice.
And
that's pretty common practice from what I understand.
Very typical. So like on this last tour, I took a guitar I was really excited about. It wasn't the most it didn't sound the best. It wasn't the best player, but it was for show. It was a light, literally, it's called a light show guitar. And so based upon the notes that you were playing, a different combination color of lights would come out from the guitar.
Fantastic. That's amazing.
Right, so it's part of the show.
That sort of harkens back to something we were talking about in the first part of the first section of the show about, like with Kiss, they were just bringing the show to it. And it was all about
the
presentation.
Glam element right there.
Exactly.
And so
it's a crowd pleaser.
Yeah. So for me, I had the company arrange a backline for me with a Fender Super. So basically, a 22 to 28 watt
and that's
amp.
a jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades.
Twin,
similar
right?
type of deal.
Yeah, okay.
I can get that dialed in where I want.
The Supro has different back end effects, right? Or
maybe
different
I use a pretty
and
straight sound too. A little bit of reverb. And then I have the company arranged to have a Stratocaster lined up for me. So
nice. Again,
as like a backup.
Workhorse, as a backup, and
jack of all trades.
Jack
guitar,
of all trades. So that light show guitar is a little bit pricey,
right?
But it's like, well, geez, I mean, it's fun,
right? And it literally is specifically for show.
For show.
So
why leave it at home?
Right.
Exactly.
If you're not showing it, you're not using it, right?
Right. So the rest of the stuff, and particularly when we're playing, here in the States, which is mostly California, I take the gear that's my favorite stuff to play. If I open up the case and I still get excited to look at it and I want to play it, that's a good sign.
And when you see those lights, even though they're not lit up at the moment, but you see those lights on that guitar when you open the case, your heart races a little. This is going to be cool.
Right.
This is going to be so cool.
I've never.
And actually, goddamn, I'm cool because I brought this. I'm bringing that cool.
Well, my band has 11 members. So
wow,
that's a full stage, right?
It's a full stage, and it's a show that we
and
put
that's
on.
a lot of gear. So you guys have to be really conscientious of the amount of stuff you're lugging around.
Totally. We're very economical with the size of everything that we take.
With airfare and everything now, everything's getting checked, and they charge for every ounce, every inch.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more major.
The backline is so important. Is having somebody rearrange all that stuff so you're not hauling an 80-pound fucking Fender amp.
And that's when it becomes from a purely monetary standpoint, to get a little inside baseball on touring, it becomes more economical to just have a company, when you get there, just supply the gear for you.
That's right.
And supply you some semi-universal gear.
Right. So the horn players, they'll take their instruments. The bass player brings his bass, but all the amplifiers, the drums, the drummer brings his cymbal bag with him, and his snare.
That's all you need.
So have you ever run into an issue where it's not quality enough? You're not getting what you think you're getting?
Let's see, the 2015 summer tour, our first night was in Mannheim, Germany, and they had a nice twin reverb there for me. And I turned it on, it worked fine during sound check, and then boom, we go to play, and it takes a dump.
Yeah.
It didn't work at all.
So just old tubes that they weren't replacing. They were supplying the gear, but they weren't really maintaining it.
I can do a little minor surgery on my own, and I went through all the diagnostics I knew to try that I was comfortable with. And so we actually had a delay. There wasn't another band there that night. So there's a guy in the audience who says, I live a couple miles away. He goes and brings his Marshall half stack, brings it back, and I play through that. So what that meant, though,
and that was the time of that guy's life. He got to be a part of the show and contribute, like the guy who sat in for Keith Moon when he passed out on stage.
At the Cow Palace.
They pulled up an audience member and had him fill in.
Where was I?
We actually looked that guy up on Wikipedia. Andrew looked that up for me and was trying to Google, because we figured, well, if he was that good of a drummer, surely he was a musician and probably has a band or a project or whatever. He does show up on Wikipedia, and his most notable reference was playing for the Who that night.
Yeah, sure. How do you top that?
So that was literally the moment of that guy's life, and I'm sure for the dude who was like, I'm gonna save this show. Without me, this does not go on.
Can you imagine that? Like, if you were somewhere and there was like, oh, we need a guitar player, and you're like, hands up, hands up.
Me.
Yeah.
But for the guy in Germany, it was like, well, the show isn't, like he said, there was nobody else to play. The show is not going to go on.
Yeah, and he understands the show must go on.
He got to help. So
and he probably still to this day tells that story to if he's at a bar and there's a fine looking lady saddled up next to him. A funny thing happened to me one time. I was seeing it. You know what I mean? That guy.
Share the story.
I was that guy.
Yeah, playing for the Who was way cooler story, but dude, a little bit. Yeah.
But I'm sure you've helped that dude get laid a lot.
I do what I can. I try to help out. It wasn't intentional,
doing God's work.
So when you're out on the road, and how many tours have you guys done?
The band's done several. I've done 2. So the band was together from I think 1995 to 2000, 2001. They toured Europe several times.
Yeah.
And then they reformed 2006 or so. And then, later than that, maybe 2009. And they brought their original guitar player back. So I was a fan of the band. They went back to Europe and did their thing there and their usual domestic shows. And then they were looking for another guitarist, so I joined. And I was a fan of the band. So
was this an additional guitarist or a replacement guitarist?
Good question. So they had 2 guitarists when I joined. The original guitarist was leaving, and they had a second guitarist join. This guy Mickey, just a tremendous guy and an excellent guitar player, who coincidentally is now leaving the band. He got married, and he and his wife are moving to Georgia.
Life showed up.
Georgia,
my home state.
So they're going to Savannah, and in fact,
Lovely
they leave later next week. So, so they had a second guitar player, but he was a younger guy. I mean, maybe 20 or 21, and guitar was kind of new to him, and they needed somebody
who had chops,
who had some chops. So I filled the role of the original guy that came back, and then he left.
Yeah, because the music you guys play requires a pretty serious skill set. It's not. It's not punk rock. It's not power.
You need to know your chords. You need to know how things work.
I got 3 of them.
And at the end of the day, we all know that's all you really need. But no, that in all seriousness, you do need to be able to provide more than just a rhythm section, power chord background.
Well, see, the interesting thing is like I've known Don for a long time, and like I know your playing skill set. I know that you can play. And so many musicians who are underrated as musicians. Like, this guy can fucking play. You know, you get him in here and you just sit down and fucking do it. Don is one of those guys, you know, where you can just, because you came given Symptoms of a Wet Guitar was a 3-chord band basically, but you added a whole lot of extra flair to that band, as you did with the Fainting Goats, you know. And
okay, so that again, you guys were playing together in 2 separate bands.
We played together in 2 separate bands, and then we coalesced into one band.
One giant band, or did one band break up and then you sort of absorbed members?
Don came in and played with us for a while. I don't even remember exactly the circumstances or anything about any of that. It was just like, yeah, let's just play.
I think it just sounded like fun, and let's try it.
Yeah.
My band's doesn't really have a whole lot of shows booked, and I'm itching to play. So if you guys are jamming, I'll come in and sit, and it'll just for fun. And it turns out it worked out.
I don't think it was ever a conscious decision.
Right.
I came in and hung out, played a little bit.
Happy accident.
Why don't we, do it live, and
then we recorded. We did some recording too, stuff. So yeah, that was
you start messing around, just hanging out as buddies, but because of where we are technologically, you actually have the ability to do more than just set up a tape recorder in the background. So you're recording your jam sessions, and at the end of it, you're like, you know what, man, this is actually pretty fucking good. Maybe we should move forward.
Well, every band that you've been in, I love the Fainting Goats. I thought that was
I love that band too.
A great band. You know, like great music.
And what was their style? Just curious.
It was kind of like indie rock. Think the Pixies, or
I think the Pixies a lot.
Okay.
They're one of my favorite bands. I love the Pixies.
Yeah, and great musicians too. Like I don't know the bass. I remember your first bass player guy, Ken. Yeah. I remember him. He played a Rickenbacker.
He did.
And then and there's the Daves. You know, Dave Rhoda and Dave Hara. Yeah. And all great musicians.
What a great name based just on that fact alone. The fact that they were the Daves because both their names happen to be Dave. That's so punk, dude.
Yeah, and great guys, nice guy, lots of fun. Always had fun playing with you guys.
So, but then that sort of went by the wayside as Symptoms of a Wet Guitar absorbed Don into the fold.
Well, I think he still kept playing.
Were you doing parallel projects? Were you playing
parallel? You mentioned life happens, and that certainly happened with the Goats as well, and. People started getting when the band came together. I was the married guy with the decent job in the house,
and then Hera got married.
Yeah, one by one, they all started getting married. So they looked at me like, "Well, gosh, Don can't have fun. He probably can't go do shows." I was the one that wanted to go do all that stuff.
Right.
I wasn't slowing anybody down. Ironically, as life happened to them, they're the ones that got slowed down.
It does seem to turn out that those circumstances, the way you would think they would evidence themselves, it tends to be the opposite. You figure the married guy with kids is going to be the guy who doesn't get to go out, who has to be home. From my experiences, that's the guy who's racing towards the door.
Right.
So he's looking for the extracurricular activities, time away.
I still want to have fun. I'm not done having fun yet.
And even though my body's telling me otherwise, I still feel 18. So I want to go do the things I did when I was 18. And then you've got the single guys with no kids that pretty much has a very lesser level of responsibilities like me, who pretty much just sits at home and does nothing all the time.
There was some of that. Yeah, I mean, those guys wanted to do it, but I think it also comes down to what else is going on at home. So for my wife, it's you're getting on my nerves. You need to go play a little bit. Go do your thing. And I like you better after you've done that.
Go have fun with your friends.
Right, exactly.
Just a quick question about your personality type. If you're not performing and creating and writing and playing, do you get antsy? Do you start to feel itchy and irritable, and you need to get out there? And like Keith Moon, we were talking about about his personality type.
You were saying he was probably on the spectrum as because of the way that he is.
And I'm clearly making that assumption about Don, that I'm saying Don's autistic.
Don is not
autistic. No, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying Keith Moon, when he wasn't out there being creative, got antsy and itchy and tended to get in trouble, or at least at the very least be an irritating asshole.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like your wife was kicking you out the door to go and be who you are at your core, because she wanted you to be happy and creative and not feel stifled.
She's been a supporter of you
all along,
all the whole way. Yeah, which is so awesome.
And my wife, that's amazing.
And my wife too, I have to say. She and I have 2 kids you know, and
if it was not for Karen and her contributions to this, we would not have a show. It really is. At the end of the day, we have Karen to thank for this.
Yeah,
so,
she puts up with
so,
it, you know.
so Karen,
shout out to Karen.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
I love you, baby.
We do too.
Can I take a step back here and ask the man of 50 guitars, what was his first guitar?
My first electric guitar was an Aria Pro 2 Stray Cat, which I parted with. Well, I got that guitar maybe 1982. My parents bought that for me, so I would have been 12 years old.
And how did you find this guitar?
It was on sale. I wanted a Les Paul, and
Don't we all?
I eventually got that guitar. But,
in the last 12 months, I made that dream come true as well.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, everybody should. And so I got that for a birthday or Christmas from my parents, and I made some modifications to it. My next guitar, which I would call kind of my first pro level guitar, was a Rickenbacker.
Wow.
And so when I got that, I sold that Aria Pro 2. And interestingly enough, about 20 years later, I found that same Aria Pro 2 on eBay.
Get out of here.
And you got it.
It's at my house right now.
Nice.
So because remember I said I wanted a Les Paul, so what I did is I wanted to put the speed knobs on it, the tone and volume, just like a Les Paul, the same style. And they weren't, it was a Japanese import, so it wasn't sized properly.
Right.
So I had to super glue that stuff on there. Those knobs are still on it.
There?
Yeah, super glued, and I made a few other little minor changes to it too that I could tell it was mine.
So you didn't find the same model guitar on eBay. You found
the same guitar.
My guitar.
That is amazing.
My guitar. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That I mean,
True
that
love.
is that is literally that's a miracle.
That is a
full
miracle.
circle.
Wow.
It was in Michigan.
Because I mean, I've heard like the old Airlines and Silvertones and stuff. The guys who started playing those that really wish they had, so they found the same model. But to find the same guitar, that's like Eric Clapton getting the Lady SG back.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, now, do you play bass at all? Do you ever
Little bit.
fool around with it?
Yeah, I've got
Do you have
basses.
You do?
Uh-huh.
Do you have any Rickies?
Is it
I've got a Ricky bass.
disrespectful
Do you
for
really?
me? Is it disrespectful for me to say that I feel like all guitar players can play bass, but not all bass players can play guitar?
I think a lot of guitar players play bass like a guitar. So they're just
Exactly.
hanging on the root.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So.
Yeah.
That's how I play.
No, that's not true.
It certainly affects your
Believe that.
style, but I, from a technical standpoint, every guitarist I've ever known could get down with the bass and at the very least make it count. But I've known a lot of bass players who, if you throw a guitar at them and say, "Hey, chords more than one finger at a time," they're lost. That's not.
But I will say a talented bass player can really make the band.
The bass player and the drummer. We've had
the band.
lengthy conversations about how without the bass player and the drummer, the band doesn't exist.
That's 100%.
I mean, it is the backbone that the rest of the skeleton relies on.
Yeah, and I think what you were saying is based on how the bass player lays it down. He's filling that particular spot so well that it needs. You know what I mean? It's incumbent on him to be able to make that sound.
And everybody
because
knows.
if you play a different bass line to a song that requires a different bass line, it's going to change the complete tone of the song.
That's right.
And everybody will know if the drummer or bass player messes up, because that's the first thing you listen to. You can hear, if they come off the beat a little bit.
That's the feel.
I always say
if the
you have a little bit more leeway. I'm not saying that guitars have it made or anything, but you can kind of get away with a little bit more on that kind of.
If the bass drops out, if you think about it, if the bass drops out and you're hearing only
guitar,
everything else, it's a big difference.
It's very noticeable.
Yes.
Yeah, but try to imagine listening to Motown music without bass.
Exactly. Yes.
It doesn't work.
In Muscle Shoals, it's not going to happen.
Any song that you can dance to, if the bass goes away or the drums go away, you can A, no longer dance to it, and B, you will notice it immediately.
Right.
But I feel like with the bass players, they have to make a lot more decisions because they're...
No, bass players don't make decisions. They're retarded. Most of us are retarded.
I was about to say, there's at least one bass player in this room that I think definitely can fall under that category. But if you go outside of the garage, you have players like John Entwistle, who is very notey and adds a lot of flourish that isn't necessary per se, but it sounds, but it totally works and it's good. And then if you go back to the Pixies, Kim Deal, the bass player for the Pixies, was one of those players who and I've seen a documentary on the Pixies where she stated this clearly. Her biggest strength was she knew when to lay back. So instead of in these sort of long spaces where she could have added notes and flourish, she would just ride the note or ride the rhythm. And
there
really
is
there
is some definite decision making when with any musician. You know, you have to know where to be, when to hang back, when to push forward.
Yeah, and she's a lot more forward in the Breeders, right? She was the bass player for the Breeders as well with her sister, and her style was quite a bit different. So you kind of have to know the song, know the band, and know the style, and as a bass player, make decisions of how your style is going to fit. I think as a guitar player, you're more of bringing what you have to offer to the table and dictating the style. And so when you joined the Inciters, I'm sure that had even though you were obviously playing songs from their old catalog, your new contributions would have had to have directed their sound in a slightly different direction.
It has. I mean, for me, it starts with on new material that we're working on, very fundamental. What would Steve Cropper do if this was a Stax song?
Steve Cropper.
You know, what would he do? And I don't put myself in the same category as him at all. But in terms of what's the right direction or what's true north, that's where I start.
Well, there's a man who's been in every freaking thing, Steve Cropper. Yeah. That guy has been around.
Odd that you would mention him, because up until probably about 8 weeks ago or so, I had never really, or at least recognizably, heard the name. Big Daddy Ross, the boss's boss, brought him up conversationally to me, and it feels like since that he mentioned that name, I'm hearing it constantly.
I mean, I figure out like every band that I usually like or that I've listened to, somehow Steve Cropper has been pretty much involved with. You know?
Everybody,
from the Blues Brothers to
all those early Stax recordings.
Exactly.
And so if you're bringing a new vibe and a new contribution to an existing project, to bring that guy's sort of style, it's
a launching point. To your point about self-editing, that guy says a lot with where he selects his moments. He's not playing start to finish. He's not constant through it. Maybe not every song, but the ones that I'm drawn to, when he decides to take his moment and step out a little bit or do a little bit of flourish, it's not about how many notes go into the measure. It's just a real tasteful approach. Yes. Yeah, and it's something that I relate to. And then because I don't have the same level of talent or skill that he has, it's my own bent on it because I can't do it as well. But it draws a little bit from a lot of different influences, and all come together.
When he also matched it up with Donald Duck Dunn. I mean, come on, that right there is just.
Well, I mean, all those old Stax records. I mean, that's right.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Just think about Green Onions, a classic.
Right. We were just talking about that.
One of the greatest instrumental songs of all time.
Right. So basic, but so elegant in its simpleness, straightforwardness. I mean, how do you replicate something like that from a creative? So those guys, I mean, Duck Dunn was on that, Steve Cropper was on that, Booker T, the man himself.
So would you call, I mean, if you had to nail it, would you say, obviously I can't say obviously, probably your roots, your entree into music probably wasn't the blues, but would you say as far as a musical influence that's a foundation that you built on, would you say that old Stax Records style, that blues style, like is blues your foundation?
As a player, there's a lot of that in my, and I think that's common for most guitarists.
Definitely.
Right.
Especially in anything.
Everything defaults to the blues. When you're sitting around in the jam room and there's nothing going on, mostly you end up playing the fucking blues.
Blues is the country without the twang.
All forms of rock and roll stand on the shoulder of blues.
Well, you guys were talking about Chuck Berry earlier, and years ago I went and toured Chess Records in Chicago.
Wow.
And they were talking about that. I highly recommend it. And they were telling us during the tour that Chuck Berry lived in the basement when he was like a teenager and was just getting started. And Chess Records building now is a foundation for blues artists, where they go and they try to sue people for infringement on their copyrights, and they try to get money back and redistribute it, mostly to
because a lot of those artists did not get paid well for what they were doing.
Right. So the woman that
at some point going forward in the future, I want to actually get into a pretty lengthy conversation about Jimmy Page and his relationship to that, and the fact that a lot of those guys didn't have writer's credits, didn't have any kind of copyright or publishing, and because of his involvement in the music industry and his awareness of the ins and outs of how legally the system worked, Jimmy Page was able to sort of stamp Led Zeppelin's name on a lot of those songs, and got paid for those songs for many, many years. And we've seen blowback from that in the last probably decade and a half of artists. And I think people from Chess and Stax coming back and saying, dude, love what you did with the song. That being said, our artists wrote that. They were the original recorders, and you need to pony up some of that cash.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a topic for another time.
Well, yeah,
but,
two quick stories on that. So we were talking about blues being the foundation, and my point about Chess Records is the wife of Willie Dixon, bass player, who heads up that foundation. And there's a great,
to this day?
To this day.
Cool.
And there's a terrific quote on the wall that says, "The blues is the roots, the rest is the fruits."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I like that.
That was a Willie Dixon quote. So I thought that was fantastic.
Very poignant quote.
In terms of
says it all.
The British artists that kind of ripped off a lot of the blues guys, in some ways, I mean, they need to be kept whole. The people who wrote that, who own that, but in some ways, those British artists shown a mirror, like held up a giant mirror from across the Atlantic back to the United States, and they're taking all this stuff and building the British invasion stuff, the R&B stuff.
From what I understand,
nothing was happening here.
A huge part of that was due to sailors. Well, not military sailors, but guys who worked on ships that would go into ports.
That's right.
They would land in ports in
any port in storm,
in the Gulf. I'm guessing Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, where a lot of those Delta blues guys were recording records, and that's what they would pick up at the local record stores. But these were guys from Europe. So then when they would get back on the ship and go back to the UK, they had all these records from across the Atlantic that they didn't have any access to.
Which is funny, because if you think about it, in the Western world, like we include the UK in as far as part of the Western world, and the UK is like musically heavily based in the blues. I mean, which is so it's kind of slightly bizarre to me because they're across the pond. But yet, you know, all these different genres of music that are in the States are also over in the UK.
It's just such a weird little, non-musical connection that without the trading between Europe and the United States and those port ships coming in, going back and forth, the British invasion does not happen without those things.
Well, Brian Jones and Keith Richards would talk about getting records that would come back from the States. And they were the guys who, they brought Howlin' Wolf to England.
That's what I love. I'm a big Howlin' Wolf fan.
You know?
Yeah, we've actually talked about how Little Red Rooster was one of the Stones' A, biggest hits, and B, not an original song.
Right.
And they brought Howlin' Wolf out on a British talk show and had him perform Little Red Rooster with them, sort of live broadcasting or whatever. The home, the birthplace of this music was not the place where they were lifted up and made to shine. It happened in England.
Right.
Thousands of miles away.
Howlin' Wolf can't get a free cup of coffee in the States.
Right.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
There's always a lot of finger pointing to the British guys about ripping off the blues artists, and that wasn't the right thing to do.
I've always looked at it as paying homage to the blues.
Yeah, right.
And they did put their spin on it, but without those guys, the blues as we know it, when we look back, it's not like it never floats to the surface.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin was a fucking blues band.
Yeah.
They weren't a metal band.
They did blues covers originally.
They were a fucking blues band as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? I mean, they put their stank on it or whatever.
The Stones and the Beatles were the same way. The Beatles did pop versions of blues songs. The Rolling Stones' first album was mostly blues covers. Yeah. It was the record company who came to them and said, yeah, that's really great and all that you did these different versions of these old songs, but now you guys have to, you need to write your own material.
Everybody was listening to Little Richard and Chuck Berry, and you know what I mean, those old guys. When
you said that, when you were talking earlier about the flair of Chuck Berry and the duck walk and stuff, the first thing that popped into my head was Little Richard, as far as being the showman, the performer, the person. Yeah, he could have sat there and played the piano, but he brought sort of a great balls of fire type energy and
well,
performance.
That's funny you say that because
show.
I was just about to mention Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah,
fucking Jerry Lee Lewis was a player in the fucking game.
You know the Johnny Cash story with Jerry Lee Lewis, right?
Which one?
They were on tour back in the day. The way the recording industry worked is record companies made money on touring, not on albums. They got all their money from the artists, got all the money from the little dinky 45s, which were basically just commercials for the shows. So, and essentially, since they were putting out 45s, artists would have 2-3 songs that the greater populace at large knew, period. So you can't do a concert with 3 songs. So they would pile all these artists together and send them out to these road gigs where there was 5, 6, 7 artists doing, so at the end of the show, there's been 14, 15, 16 songs played, and there's your concert. So, but each artist
and they do 2 shows usually. But there's a 5 p.m. show. There's
right, exactly. Yeah, like stand-up comics. They would do. We got 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday.
Yeah.
So yeah, these guys were touring musicians, and the record companies. That's how they made their money. So they would fund all these tours. Well, Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis were on one of those tours together, and Johnny Cash had this reputation of being the villain in black, this Southern badass who was going to come out there and blow your mind. Jerry Lee Lewis went out on stage, played his couple of songs, did that insane version that you can find on YouTube. I would highly suggest you watch it, of him doing Great Balls of Fire, where he dumped, I think it was lighter fluid, all over the piano, lit it on fire, and finished and did Great Balls of Fire with the flaming piano. So he finishes playing the song, "Thank You, Good Night," walks off stage and passes right by Johnny Cash and went, "Beat that motherfucker."
Yeah, they're always trying to one up.
That's pretty hard. It's hard to follow.
Yeah, beat that mother. Or no, thank you, Ross. I think he said, "Follow that. Follow that motherfucker."
Follow that.
And walked off, and Johnny Cash was just like, "Oh shit."
Speaking of following that, when you're, we should talk about the Inciters because
yes,
you're here.
We have Don Roland in the house.
That's what we're talking about. When you're out on the road and you're playing, how do they arrange other bands that you play with? Is it just, from a logistical standpoint? Do you get to pick who you play with out on the road, or is it just like
when you arrange tours? Do you primarily tour as a supporting act? Do you tour as a headlining act, or does it depend on the show and where you're at?
It's a little of both.
Okay, yeah, so it is a mix. All right.
Yeah, when we travel overseas, it's usually just us playing that night.
Right.
So we may play for 2 or 3 hours.
That's even better, actually.
Yeah. And let me guess,
it's a lot of pressure.
You don't take any fucking breaks, right? You play straight, right?
Well,
or do you take breaks?
This particular show cannot say that. We definitely take breaks.
No, I know that we do, but
we don't
guys?
usually take breaks. There are certain situations that we will, like if we go play a casino, which we'll do because it's really good money.
Oh yeah.
We prefer dive bars. That's where we want to play,
right?
Because that's where the fans are the most engaged. But as far as the paychecks go, casinos, hotels, any kind of support gig like that, that pays the bills.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing when we would take a break. But when we travel overseas, it's different. It's it runs like a machine. So when you are off the plane and they're putting you in a van and you're going to your first club and they give you an itinerary essentially for the tour, and it says that you will be at the club by 4:00, and load-in is at 4:30, and you would do sound check at 5:30, and there's going to be dinner at 6, and for every day is kind of laid out that way, and you're on the tour bus. The bus usually meets you not at the airport, but at the first venue.
So for those of you out there who think that touring musicians, that it's all just hookers and cocaine, it's not. It's a job. And there's a schedule, and you have to be a professional.
Along with the hookers.
There are hookers and cocaine.
What I tell people is I highly recommend...
I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's it.
There's a lot of fun to be had. what I tell people is I recommend you do it when you're single and in your 20s, and I'm neither of those things.
Which is awesome.
Which is awesome, but my band has a pretty
dreams
wide,
of the future.
wide distribution of age ranges. So the youngest guy is 21, and there's some others in their 20s. So I get to live a little bit vicariously just watching them.
Yeah.
But
like I do with Big Daddy Ross.
There you go.
Thank you.
There's a lot of similarities. And so if you're playing, let's say you're in Berlin that night, and they're telling you what time you start and what time you end. And then there's a downtime between when you're done and when you need to be on the bus to go to the next city.
Yeah.
So and it's all based upon what the distance is to your next.
Yeah, commute time.
Well, let's go back to breaks here for a second, because I know my dad's told me this once before, but you see a hot band that you really want to see, and they take that half an hour break, and you're kind of just standing there, sitting there. It's kind of kills the vibe a little bit, you know, like it's a little too long.
It kills the vibe a lot.
A lot, you know.
Yeah,
you're
you don't
there, it's
want
why,
an intermission.
I came here to see the band. I don't want to see them, just take a break. But yet, I get it.
You worked hard building the audience up, so
why let it dissipate like that?
But with touring styles right now, I mean, that's fairly rare. What you're more looking on in breaks is that I think the type of break Army was talking about was that you play a set, and that's the early set, and then you take like an hour break or whatever, and then you come back, much like the Beatles did in Hamburg, where they would play 3 sets a night, and they were, and that's how they
Speaking of
made
Hamburg,
their chops.
I wanted to ask you, have you played that spot where the Beatles played in Hamburg?
So they played the Star Club and Club Indra,
and they were the house bands in both, right? They were the house bands in both, right?
They were. So there, it's not like the people are coming out to go see the Beatles. They were seeing whatever band was playing, right?
Exactly.
So
it's like a lounge act.
Yeah. So there is a Star Club there now, I believe. I haven't been to it, but I think the original is torn down and there's a new one in its place. But Club Indra is still there, and I've never played that. I've played Hamburg multiple times, but not that venue. I've gone to it and taken pictures in front of it, and actually each time I've gone,
a touring musician, that has to be a dream gig. Like someday.
For me personally, just kind of a vanity thing.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I shook the hand that shook the world.
There is a club in Hamburg called Monkeys, and it's our good friend Ralph owns and operates that, and that's kind of our home away from home when we're over there, and that's where I want to be. Good. But if I had a shot to go play somewhere else in that town, it'd be Club.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's right off the Reeperbahn, which is talk about hookers and blow.
Wow.
That's where it is, huh?
They are aggressive. I'll just tell you.
That's their red light district.
It's their red light district. So if you're walking down the street right there, the hookers, by the way, they're all beautiful, beyond beautiful, and they all kind of have a uniform. They wear like a puffy coat and white tight jeans and Ugg boots, and you can see them a block away.
That's really from a legal standpoint. That's actually fairly clever.
Yeah.
To where you don't have to be overt. You can't really be accused of anything. But if there is sort of a standard set of kit, then quote unquote customers could spot them a mile away. And with
Europe is also it's different when it comes to prostitution, right?
Yeah.
It's way more acceptable.
Yeah, it depends where you're at, but particularly in Hamburg, there is the official red light district, and the name of it escapes me. But there's this one street where women aren't allowed to go down it, and you walk down, and there's buildings on either side, and there's beautiful women in the windows.
Is that an unwritten rule, or is that
there are
legal?
signs out?
Wow,
women are not allowed to walk on the street.
Wow,
no. On this one stretch in the red light district where it's women are not allowed to walk,
because that's where Johns go to get hookers.
So no hooking here, basically.
No, the opposite. No non-professionals allowed on the seat.
But in that neighborhood, there are these other women.
That seems like more of a personal protection thing for the women who might wander down there. Because every male down there is going to assume that if you're on that street, you're a hooker, you're a pro.
Right. So in the neighborhood, though, there are these other prostitutes that walk the street, and as they come by, they come up and they're really aggressive, and they'll come out and touch you and try to put their hand on your pants and everything. And
because as far as they're concerned, there's no other reason for you to be down here. So,
right. Well, and they don't want to let you go.
They're like those guys in Best Buy who, when you're just sort of like looking around, seeing what the new TV is, and they just
let me show you this one.
They aggressively come up to you and go, "Can I help you find anything? Is there anything you need? We've got this on sale." And you're like, "Dude, I'm just browsing. Leave me alone." So if you're a guy wandering down that particular street, you're gonna get assailed by these aggressive women who want to find out if there's anything they can show you.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, as an American, we tend to be very polite, and so I don't want to be rude. I'm like, oh no, thanks, and they hear the English, and I can't do a German accent, so I'm not even going to try. But like, oh, American, you know, how are you? You know,
now they see deep pockets and they really want to.
Exactly.
I don't want. And then I was like, no, thinking. I point to my ring. I'm married, and this one says, it's okay, you'll still be married afterwards.
Now that is a good saleswoman.
Yeah.
And then, they know the lines. So I said, no, that's okay. Like again, I'm worried about hurting her feelings.
Sure,
exactly.
Just walk
That's
away.
what we think. Yeah. No, I apologize. No, you're very pretty, but no, thank you for the
I'm
offer.
worried about her self-esteem.
And as the consummate professional, she's got the perfect retort for that particular thing.
Oh, 'cause the next
You'll
one-
still be married when we're done.
Yeah.
That is
Well,
fantastic.
the next one, she's like, well, are you homosexual? I'm like, no, I don't have
so-
to prove
I'm
that.
Right,
I'm
so,
not.
so now her sales
I feel
pitch
bad
is
saying no.
she's going to attack your masculinity. And
No, she's like a telemarketer. It's like she can turn on a fucking dime and like whatever you say, I have the counter
she's
retort.
got
to
She's got a
angles.
that.
flip chart in her head of
This
what to
girl
say.
has angles.
The other one that they'll say is like, what are you, Dutch? And I guess that's an
Are you Dutch?
That's an insult in,
Wow.
apparently in Germany.
What's
So-
wrong with the Dutch?
I don't know. I love the Dutch.
On your travels, you guys have done Europe. What's been the best spot that you've like?
My gosh,
where have
so
you had
many.
where have you had the most fun?
The most
at,
fun.
you know?
Paris.
Really?
Paris is a
Where in
lot
Paris?
of fun.
France.
Couldn't tell you exactly where.
Yeah, that
Paris,
France. Street or
Oh, well, I mean, like the outskirts of,
Oh,
you
no,
know,
right in the heart of the
Right.
city.
you're right in
Yeah.
the heart of the city by the
Yeah.
tower.
And
What's
it was
the-
Fashion Week when we were playing there, so the
Ooh.
models
Oh.
You
everywhere.
can't
Hot
complain
chicks.
there.
Yeah.
No.
I'm sure that week the scenery in Paris was even more beautiful than it normally is.
It was outstanding. And
What is the name of the river that runs through Paris?
I don't know. I've been through it, though.
The Rue de whatever. That's
The-
supposedly just like one of the most amazing places on the planet.
One thing I remember is all the bridges. The really cool bridges on that river are super.
You've been to Paris?
I
Ross?
have, yes. When I was
Really?
like 14 or something, we went to started off in Provence with all the lavender fields, and then went into the actual city of Paris, and it's an interesting place. One place I would never want to drive in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those roundabouts are like 8 lanes
crazy.
wide.
Dude,
you know?
I went to Japan
Flip
when I was 16. I went to go visit my dad in Japan, and if you've ever had to drive your drunk dad home when you don't even have, I didn't even have
You
my
can't even
driver's
read the
license.
signs.
Not
Yeah.
not to mention
well, you
like
definitely
driving.
didn't have it in Japan.
Yeah, and driving backwards. You know,
You
I
stood
mean,
out a little bit.
yeah, the opposite side of the road is like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, exactly. And let alone like all of the signs that you kind of have to read in what
French?
what the miles per hour. It's not miles per hour.
Oh,
It's
kilometers.
in
Okay.
kilometers. You're like, okay, so it's something kilometers. The fuck does that mean? I have no idea. You know, I'm just gonna keep going to group speed or
I
whatever.
hope
but-
I'm going the right speed
exactly.
limit.
Yeah.
The club we played in Paris had this great dance floor on it. It was one of those from the 80s where the different squares would light up different colors.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
like that
Wow,
Michael
that's
Jackson.
So weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dude, that sounds like the Billie Jean video.
Yeah.
That is bananas.
We were
Staying
so
alive.
stoked to see that.
Yeah,
But
that's
you know,
awesome.
everywhere we went was just really outstanding. I'm not trying to be PC about it. I loved playing in the Czech Republic. Those guys were
Really?
crazy.
Dude, is it Prague or are there other? I know very
Yeah, we
little
played
about
in
Czech
Prague,
Republic.
yeah.
But
So is it scene specific there? Are they into like a scene like we're
like
fucking
Northern
into,
Soul?
We're into
Are they
soul.
into Northern
Yeah,
Soul?
are they into Northern Soul? That's a great question.
Actually,
Yeah.
just real quick, just for my clarification, when you say Northern Soul, what exactly does that encapsulate for you?
That's an excellent question, and I'm certainly not the spokesperson for it because there's some people who are
I will be.
really you can do it who are really dedicated to this concept of Northern Soul. And so if I get anything wrong, I apologize in advance. Because people take it very seriously.
You got anything to say about it? You talk to me.
Right. In a nutshell, it came out of the mod scene. The earliest mod folks were listening to at the time was called modern jazz, and from that group, it kind of evolved to more.
Never knew that.
Yeah.
I've been familiar with mod culture and the mod scene
Modern
for
jazz.
most of my life. I never knew why they were called. I just figured it was just the modern. So whatever was new was cool. I did not know it was modern
They were
jazz.
jazz guys. So yeah, and then it evolved into more folks listening to still jazz, but a lot of R&B.
Because, real quick as an aside, the beatnik movement, which was sort of the alternative, that was how kids sort of rebelled before rock and roll and the bikers and the rockabillys and those guys, and the mods in the 60s, before they sort of came to the forefront. The beatniks soundtrack to their lives was jazz. Yeah. So that jazz then transformed into
yeah,
exactly, the sort of the Maynard G. Krebs, the black sunglasses and the black turtlenecks and the
glasses and the
beret,
berets.
the black beret, and the
people talk about them as
and,
trads, the traditional jazz.
So modern jazz. So the beatniks are the counterculture scene in like North Beach in San Francisco, where all the beat writers like William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg and those guys came from.
Was Burroughs from San Francisco?
No. But that's where the popularity of that beat movement really kind of went to the forefront, and it obviously led to like Neil Cassidy and Kerouac, that whole thing.
Jack Kerouac.
But so what I'm getting now from what you just told me, so that scene, as that sort of became more mainstream and accepted, the kids who were trying to rebel against the norm, that generation's punk rockers, went towards modern jazz, which had a crossover later with rock and roll, and so that's where the mod scene emerged.
The modern jazz movement, what we consider mods, came out of that. So they wanted
fucking cool.
They wanted everything to be new, and I think during in the book Absolute Beginners, there's a good description of it where
by who?
Guinness, I think, was the writer, or McGinnis.
Yeah, I'm not.
But Absolute Beginners. It was a movie from the 80s.
I remember the movie. I didn't realize it was based on a book.
Yeah.
David Bowie did one of the songs. The Absolute Beginners was the title track for
Bowie
that song.
was a early mod as well, before all his hunky dory stuff. And
Definitely.
But they talked about the mods coming out of that as being England's first teenagers, kind of post-war, first kids with money,
right?
And so they wanted
Middle
everything
class.
new, and so they wanted the Italian suits and the as a rebellion against the kind of greasers with their motorcycles that have those scooters, where they're enclosed, so you're not getting the grease spit up on them. They can look nice.
That we've actually had we got into a small conversation about the rude boy scene.
Yeah.
And there, one of the things I think that doesn't translate from the UK to America is rude. The word rude has a completely different meaning. Here, rude means impolite or obnoxious. There, rude means sexual, randy, or inappropriate sexually. So, if you say, "Nice tits, Helen," that bra's doing you a good service. That's a rude comment. Not that it's impolite.
I love that.
Sexually
nice
rude.
Nice tits, Helen. That bra's
doing you a good service. But so the rude boys, the reason they were rude wasn't that they were in the 80s. I think a lot of people thought that the ska guys that were like English Beat and Special Beat Service and those guys that raised the rude boy flag. It was rude because they were obnoxious and violent, kind of like punk rockers. The actual meaning was that they were well-dressed, dapper gentlemen who were out to get the ladies. They were putting the sexy on.
It was really a scene. Like I came in like way late. Like I was born in '72.
That's so late.
So well, like in the 90s, there was a resurgence of stuff, right? Like the mod scene, there was a resurgence. There was a rockabilly resurgence. There was a ska resurgence.
Things are cyclical.
Yeah, definitely. But I came in I was never on the forefront, unfortunately. That would have been fantastic, but it didn't happen. You end up learning a lot about those particular moments in time if that's something that you're into.
At the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, there was kind of a bit of an economic resurgence where people had a little extra spending money. And much like post-war UK, this was that level of teenager after the war that had after-school jobs or had quit school and started working because the economy was there to support it. They weren't just on the dole. And those were the guys that started. The reason I brought up Rude Boys is the suits. The mod culture, these were the guys. They weren't wearing jeans and white Hanes t-shirts and leather jackets. They would go and spend all their money on nice suits, nice ties, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and on records like and they followed bands like the Kinks and the Who. These guys who probably because of television appearances would get a nice suit to make their appearance on the BBC
Can you guys
or whatever.
Define the Monkees for me? That wasn't mod. Was that mod?
No,
it was not mod.
That was more hippie.
A lot of people think it was, but it was not.
No, that was hip Beatles.
That's Beatles-esque, right?
Yeah,
yes.
if you want a prototypical band that sort of encapsulates, well, there's two. The Kinks and the Who. Am I
okay?
Am I wrong in that, Don?
I would certainly put the Who on there, but I'd probably also say Small Faces.
Definitely,
Rod Stewart.
definitely.
Yes,
Sure,
I love
sure.
Rod Stewart. Yeah,
absolutely.
From that era.
Yeah,
but there were a lot. I mean, the action, lots of.
As a Scottish man, Rod Stewart, I'm gonna have to, just say.
Dude, and that went on to like Sham 69 and the Jam.
Okay,
and the Jam kind of had their feet in both worlds of the mod scene and the early punk scene.
Absolutely.
But do
you like punk?
I love punk. Yeah.
What do you have a favorite? Like, what style of punk do you like? Because there's so many different genres, but like, what do you like?
If I wanted to go listen to some, I'd probably put on Bad Brains.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That's a pick right there for you.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Fucking HR.
Not to mention an influential band, but in that era, just awesome singers, bass player, guitarist, and not to mention African American of all sorts, in a punk band. Not that that means anything or anything, but fucking awesome. Those guys killed it.
Oh, Bad Brains.
I mean, have you guys seen their documentary? I forget what it's called.
No.
God, but it was really good. It talks about how they started and where they progressed, where they went to.
DC hardcore, man. DC hardcore.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the funny thing is, like, DC.
Are they from Detroit? No, Detroit
Washington.
or Washington.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and DC spit out like so many fucking great punk bands.
We haven't talked.
Wasn't Fugazi?
We've been very
and Minor Threat from
music
DC?
centric this week, but we normally do a little chunk of movies and TV and stuff. There's a series called Sonic Highways that Dave Grohl did.
Yeah.
He took the Foo Fighters from town to town to town, and each episode basically they went to a different city, recorded a new song. I should say wrote and recorded a new song because they didn't write anything until they got there because they wanted the city's influence. The Washington, D.C. episode was great, and it dealt with a lot of Bad Brains stuff. Yes, Minor Threat is from there. Henry Rollins is actually from there. He was in a band called SOA. Was his first project, which was on Discord Records. That's Ian Mackay's label. Before he was on Black Flag.
Pre-Black Flag, yeah.
Yeah. But that was Ian's thing, too. And one of the biggest influences on those guys was Bad Brains. And there is a doc on Bad Brains where they I don't think HR's actually interviewed much in it, if at all. But Dr. No, the guitarist, is. And those guys as East Coast Rastafarian guys doing punk rock, or well, at least HR was a Rastafarian. I think he brought the Rastafarian culture to be clear, as a band.
Rastafari
Rastafari.
It's Roz, like first name, Tafari,
that's
second name. You know what I mean?
That's my original.
Rastafarian.
Yeah. It's on my birth certificate. It's Rastafarian Perry.
No, one of the what I was going to say to me it was kind of interesting that they brought this Caribbean influence into the punk rock scene, which is very similar to what was going on in the UK with ska music.
Specials.
There was this reggae influence that was laid over the top of rock and roll or of punk rock or whatever, and that you blend punk rock, you blend with reggae, that's where you end up with ska. Because you've got your horn section, and
then you have your first wave of ska,
but
then you have
dude,
your second wave of ska.
If you want to tie it back
but the background music during the 70s for the UK was dub, which was basically this bass heavy. When you listen to it as a passive observer, to you it just sounds like vocal free reggae. And that was the music that punk rockers listened to because that's what they played in all the bars.
The Clash.
Right.
Yeah, so the Clash, the Sex Pistols, all those guys. They played
Clash
aggressive
was
power chord music,
influenced by all the reggae, the whole reggae.
Yeah. They have reggae. They have straight up reggae songs.
But they had so many good songs that I wouldn't myself classify as punk.
That's exactly what he was saying. That they have punk songs.
They were just good musicians.
They have punk songs.
I mean, Joe Strummer.
They have folk songs.
Topper on drums when he wasn't on heroin.
They have reggae songs.
Yeah,
they have ska songs. They have the Clash is.
Paul on bass.
The punk in the Clash was all about their attitude and their presence and their production. But their music is not all punk.
That first Clash album,
The Clash.
The Clash, yeah. I mean, that was a punk album.
Yeah, okay.
But so you take that Caribbean influence of reggae, throw that on top of the rock and roll, and then you end up with this hybrid that is kind of ska, which eventually evolves into Northern Soul. You know, there are similarities as far as the
little reaching.
That was a pretty big one.
Well, no, I'm not saying they're the same, but I'm saying
there's some overlap.
The similarities are you have way more than 4 or 5 guys on stage.
Yeah.
You know, you got horns, you got keyboards, you have organs.
By the way, the fucking horns are fantastic, man.
Really? By the way,
holy shit.
Who are your horn players,
the guitar,
by the way?
That's what you want to hear.
Yeah, it's all about the guitar.
So good, man. Fucking good.
If you're listening to the Inciters, there's only one thing to really pay attention to, and that is the guitar. Everybody else is kind of sitting there to support the guitar.
On that song 100.
What guitar are you playing?
On that guitar, I'm playing a Telecaster.
It is a Tele.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I was going to say more of a,
It's Army's go-to axe, by the way.
Is that
a Jazz Master or a Jaguar? That's what I was going to say.
Did you record the mint green? Because I fucking love that combo you have.
Oh.
The mint green fucking Tele and amp.
Yeah. It's fun. I remember it was a Telecaster. I remember which one. I don't think I had that one yet.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I got that a little bit later in the band.
Well, is that your preferred axe when you're playing? Is it Tele?
Right now, my touring guitar is a 1960s reissue custom shop Stratocaster.
Nice.
Really?
Well, we were talking about earlier that when you're going utilitarian, you got to pick the workhorse, and a Strat is pretty universal.
A Strat is, but let me ask you
Strat
this:
I would say Strat or an SG.
Yeah,
because the SG fills the Les Paul hole. It fills what I mean. It covers a lot of bases. So
when I'm playing guitar, I have a problem on the Strat with the knobs.
The volume knob, you hit it when you're playing, don't you?
It's annoying as fuck. Does that bother
play
you?
Play closer to the neck.
It's called skill.
Yeah, I don't have any of that. I don't know what that is.
Every once in a while, I'll hit the pickup selector, but that's pretty rare.
I would say it's probably because lazy guitarists rest their elbow on the
You're
body.
A bass player, man.
So,
you've got your hand on there, and you're.
It's true.
Put a little energy into it, and actually hold your hand up. That's it ain't gonna take you too.
Can I hold your hand?
Fuck you guys.
I'm playing with you, baby. I'm playing with you, baby. So as far as the Inciters go, I mean, when was your most recent release?
We released a single late last year was a song that we recorded in Germany. So that tour, the company that put that together.
And that single was?
It's called Baby I Love You. And on the A side, it was in English. The B side, it was in German.
Nice.
No shit.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that was to help pay for the tour. So the way most tours work, unless you're some really big act, is there's somebody that puts up a lot of money up front and books a lot of things, and you're expected to make that money back.
Sure. Right.
And so you're there and you're working.
And so do you essentially get anything above that initial investment?
Yeah, if you're above a certain, then there's a split that happens.
Is there any kind of guarantee that goes with that, where even if the money doesn't get recouped, you at least get touring costs covered? Or
everything we earn first goes to cover the touring cost.
Sure.
So that's the backline that we talked about,
and that's the money that the investor put up originally.
Right. It's the promoters, the company.
Sure.
So they do this with a million different bands.
Yeah, absolutely. It's par for the course.
And so they're working on guarantees at each of those venues, and that can be hit or miss.
And they do things. They'll paper the room, where they'll go through and give free tickets to people walking by so that they buy drinks, and that
they'll even put up money for the merch. So you show up and you've got merch there that has all your
Really?
band logos on it and everything. And
which, by the way, listeners, we are working on Anvil Hammer Hatchet T-shirts and stickers. So it's a work in progress. Hang tight; they'll be there.
Gotta hustle.
But yeah, so yeah, merch sales matter for sure.
Right. So at the end of it, you count up the money, and hopefully because if a working band goes over there and doesn't earn enough, then they've got to write a check.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I mean, someone's got to pay for it.
I know from every band
there's
that
door
I've
deals
ever...
too, where you pay a pay to play rate, and then whatever you can recoup, you hope you recoup more than you paid to be on the stage.
Well, the thing is, I know for any touring band that I've ever been with or known about, is you're not making money on the front end based on your performance. You're making money based on the merchandise.
Yeah, on salesmanship.
Selling,
yeah.
Hopefully, and if you can bring the fucking noise, and you have enough people to generate the profit to cover your costs, and the merchandise.
That's where you're making your money.
That's where it goes. Is that the similar sort of deal with you guys?
And speaking of that, real quick, I'm pretty retarded. So what was the name of the last single again?
Baby I Love You.
Baby I Love. And where can you find that? I mean,
so it's on iTunes.
Okay, great.
So that the recording of that fell into the equation for how do you pay for the tour.
Right.
So the promoter paid for the studio time.
Wow.
And then also to house us during that time because we were off the road for a couple days. It was in Hamburg, and
with 11
that's
people,
nice, though.
With 11 people, how long did it take to record the single?
3 days.
That's not bad. It's not bad at all.
It was really fast.
Do you guys do you do it live or do you single track everything?
We did single track. We did the rhythm section together, horn section, and then vocals.
Okay,
nice. That's probably why it was so fast. You didn't do. Everybody didn't have their own.
And we've
tape.
been
But so you can get that on iTunes.
iTunes. It's on vinyl.
Okay, cool.
We sell
do the Insiders have a website where you can order vinyl and special editions?
You can order it from the label, get vinyl.
And that label
Which your label is?
Yeah.
Depends on which release. It's always some different label.
Well, let's go with the most recent one. Do you know off the top of your head or?
I can't think of it.
All right, send me the link, and that way we can direct people to where they can order the vinyl if they want. If you want to download the single, or I'm assuming the Insiders catalog,
and you can
go to
Google
iTunes.
the Insiders and find stuff to listen to.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's probably phone videos on YouTube, and
the best place to buy it is at one of our shows.
Right,
exactly.
Right. And I'll tell you a little secret too.
Question,
that bands that are going around, if you buy merch at their shows, chances are the band is benefiting from those dollars.
Right, absolutely.
Or if you download it, it depends on what song it is. It might go to the
straight
company
to iTunes.
What is it like? 60% of iTunes
it's small.
Goes elsewhere other than the band. So if you really want to support the band, especially in the digital, if they're coming to your place, go see them live. If they're not, get it directly from their website. The Insiders, I'm assuming, have a website. What's that?
Facebook is really our.
Oh, okay. So Facebook. So the best place to find upcoming tour dates, if you want to find out when the Insiders are coming close to you.
The Insiders.
Speaking
Facebook.com/
the Insiders with a C.
Right.
Are you guys playing?
Yes, it is not the Insiders. It's the Inciters. So Facebook.com/ the Insiders is where you're going to go to find Don and his band's tour dates, links to his merchandise, links to his downloads. If you're a diehard Apple fan, just search the Insiders on iTunes. That's where you'll find the stuff, because this is a fantastic band. We're going to be going out with an Insiders song, just to give you guys another little example. The song that we came back in with after the break is a song called 100. That's the Insiders. That's Don playing on guitar. And, so you've heard how fantastic it is. We're going to be going out with another one of their songs, just to give you another example that, not a one-trick pony. It's not just that one song.
No, they're great.
They're great.
Fantastic.
They're a great band. So check them out when they come to you. Go to their Facebook page and find all the links there. Find their tour dates. Go see the Insiders. You're about to hear what a great band they are. Again, because we already gave you a little taste when we came back in from break. All of our social media links are on AnvilHammerHatchet.com. They're all at the top of the page. They're easy links to find. That's our Instagram. That's our Twitter. There's a link to our YouTube. So if you're a person who doesn't download things, you just stream. Go to the YouTube page. You can stream it all from there. As I said earlier, we do have a new platform. We're on Google Play now, so subscribe to that.
And listen to the fucking Insiders.
Here we go. We're gonna play a track.
Absolutely.
We're gonna play a track for you right
Insiders.
now. So.
Yeah, and
they're awesome.
Yeah, at the end of the day, follow us on social media, but more importantly, follow the Insiders. Follow Don Roland, who was gracious enough to bless us with his presence this week. Thank you, Don. Dude, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for stopping by.
It was awesome to have you here, dude. You're our second guest, and it really, just you being here makes me want to have more guests.
And here's the Insiders for you. Enjoy.
alive.